Welcome back to another episode of After the Session. My name is Adam Frower.
No, you're not, Adam. That's not true. My name is Dr. Adam Frower. You gotta use your official professional title because this is an official professional podcast.
No, I
don't. Yes, you do. Look, everybody listening, this guy, he's not someone to brag or boast, but he is Dr. Adam Frower. And that's relevant when we're breaking down therapy sessions, Adam. That's relevant when we're breaking down therapy content.
Well, you don't have to be a doctor in order to do that.
No, I didn't know. I didn't say it's a requisite. I just said it's relevant, right? It's just relevant. That's all. Just relevant.
Technically, that is my title. Do you want to introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, I'm not Dr. Elliott Connie. I am master degree Elliott Connie.
Master Elliott.
No, you can't say that to Black people. We have a negative association with the word master. But I do hold a master's degree, which it's also important that I say because I think people assume that I am not a licensed, educated, credentialed psychotherapist. Like when I look on social media, my comments and posts, or when I look in the chat section of some of the webinars I do, people are always like, are you a licensed professional? Where'd you get your license? Where'd you get your degree? And it is offensive, Adam, because no one ever asks you that question. I'll let the people listening to me take a guess as to why I hypothesize that that's true. But I want people to understand I have a license to practice psychotherapy. I have a multiple degrees that make me a credible source to do the job that I do. And so does Dr. Adam Frower.
It's true. We both have both of those things. So I'm going to ask you some questions. So what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to review episode 3 from Family Therapy. And this episode was called The Brain Can Be a Negative Thought Engine, which I may or may not get to in the questions. But a big part of this session is that Jay, the woman that Elliott regularly meets with and talks with over this course of the podcast, she is really kind of in a tough place in this session. And one of the beginning questions that we always ask in repeat sessions is, what's been better? And she basically says, well, she said, not much. Not much is better. And one of the things that you talked about is she's in the middle of a separation with her partner. And then later in the session, she gets into, there's a lot of like previous abuse and all of those kinds of things that are impacting kind of where she is in this moment. And so one of the things that I want to talk about and kind of pull apart is that each one of us in our lives, we might hit these moments where we feel like not much is better. And Elliott walks through and kind of helps get over this hump a bit. And so I think there's some real lessons that we can each pull into our own lives of like when we hit these similar like slumps in life, how do we get better? And so Elliott, one of the very first questions that you ask her as she says like not much is better, you say, how have you managed? And then she says, I don't know, I just keep moving forward. And then you say, how are you pleased with the way that you're showing up during these difficult times? And I think that's a really important question that we kind of need to pull apart a bit. Can you tell me why did you ask her that? Like, how are you pleased with the way you're showing up when she's saying not much is better? I can't really pull anything that says there's improvement. So why are you assuming that she's pleased with the way she's showing up?
Because it's really important that we focus on the things that we can control. And there's a lot of things we can't control that sometimes don't go our way. And sometimes if I say like, hey, how's your day? Like to somebody I'm just, meeting on the street or whatever, how's your day? We often measure, in essence, how many things that I can't control actually went my way. So like, oh, it's a beautiful weather day, but you have no control over the weather. Or so when she's like, not much is better, and she says, I just keep going. I want to ask you, like, in what ways are you pleased with the way you keep going to help you focus on the things you can control and also acknowledge there are constantly things happening that you are pleased with?
I need you to nuance that just a bit more, because you highlighted like things like the weather you can't control,
Yes.
but you're saying like I want you to focus on the things you can control. What kinds of things, if I feel like not much is improving, not much is getting better, I'm in a bit of a slump, what kinds of things should I be paying attention to that would let me know like, oh, I'm in control of this in the midst of stuff I feel like I'm not in control of?
The way you face your challenges. Like, here's an example. This has been professionally a really challenging year for me personally. Like, some things happened about a year ago in my business that Adam is fully aware of. I won't go into super detail here in the podcast, but some things happened in the business that made this a challenging year. And I was talking to my aunt, who, Adam, you know, my aunt can be a little bit,
Wonderful.
she can poke. Um, and, you know, and I'm an honest, transparent person. If someone asks me how I'm doing, I'm going to tell you. So my aunt called me a couple of weeks ago when I was having a difficult time. And I said, look, I'm not having a great day. Things are really challenging. And that caused my aunt to be worried. And my aunt was like, you know, what are you doing to deal with it? I was like, that's not the right question. First of all, I'm human, and I want everybody to know when Jay says not much is getting better, I don't take that as a sign of her deteriorating mental health. Like, we're not going to have great days every day, all day. We're just not. So we're gonna have ebbs and flows, challenges and difficulties, that sort of thing. But what I am pleased about, like in my own circumstance, is how I have faced the obstacle. I have not run from the obstacle that my business has faced in the past year. I have not coped negatively. Like, I haven't started drinking, using drugs. Like, I'm facing the obstacle. So if you were to ask me, Elliot, in what ways are you pleased with the way you've gone about things, even though it's been a challenging stretch, I would absolutely tell you with pride that I woke up every day and faced it. I didn't run from it. I didn't hide my emails. I faced it. And I continued to face it, even when it got challenging and difficult, even when my mood wasn't great. I faced it. And I'm not drinking. I don't use drugs. I don't do, like, I faced it as me. So, like, I'm not in control. The thing that happened to our company, I'm not in control of what happened. Like, some criminal hacked into a company that we were contracted with, and as a consequence, got into our company. I had no control over that. One day, I was literally outside in my front of my house checking the mail, and as I was walking back into the house, I got a phone call to alert me to this issue that had happened. I had zero control over that circumstance, but I have total control over how I show up and how I face it. So I know that Jay, she's not in total control over whatever it is causing her to say not much is getting better, but she's in absolute total control in how she's showing up, how she's facing it, and what she's doing. And the other thing is, like, I think people take for granted their greatness constantly. And, like, it's really easy when you're having a great day and everything is going your way to be like, oh, I woke up today and I made my kids breakfast and I hugged my husband, or, you know, whatever Jay would say. Um, but when we're really struggling, I want Jay to have some pride in what we would normally say is the normal stuff. Like, I know Adam really well. I'll bet you guys right now, $10, Adam is sitting at his desk and he's not wearing any shoes. I'll bet you Adam is wearing socks. Adam, is that true?
That's true.
All right. Now, what does that have to do with anything? Let me tell you. Adam right now is 3 floors away from his bedroom where his day started, right? So he's in his basement, then there's a middle floor, and then there's a floor above that where his day started. If Adam is having a really challenging day, right? So what Adam did today was he woke up, went through his morning routine, Then he got dressed and he came down at the base in the basement and he started his day. Now that morning routine for 99% of people is something that we take for granted because we do it every single day. But if this was a really challenging day for Adam, like, his wife left, his kids don't want to talk to him anymore, like, whatever, like, catastrophic thing that would happen to him, all of a sudden that morning routine, it required strength for him to go through it. But when people have that happen, like, sorry, Adam, but your wife's leaving, and sorry, Adam, but um, Toby ran away, doesn't want to talk to you anymore. These are the things that bring people into therapy. Like, these are the things that cause people to really struggle. And for Adam to wake up on that day and do his morning routine, I want him to be like, yeah, I faced my day, and not take it for granted and not overlook it, and recognize that I had to do some work, some psychological, mental work to get myself to eat that breakfast, or to do my morning exercise, or to do my morning meditation, or whatever your morning routine is. Like, I know Adam, he literally lives his life by very rigid structures and routines. And I know that he did his structure and his routine this morning. That's how I knew he's not wearing shoes, because I know putting on shoes is not part of Adam's I'm working in my house structure and routine. And it's not something Adam thinks about. It's just an automatic, like, boom, 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 until it's a really, really hard day. Like, your car got stolen, you lost your job, um, you have a secret, you having an affair and your wife just discovered it, or you've been secretly drinking, and people, you know what I mean? Like, until something happens to wobble life, somebody called CPS on you, and you're being investigated by Child Protective Services, and they've decided they're going to place your children with another person while you and Becca get your lives sorted. Like, those are the things that cause people to come into therapy, and they're also the things that cause people to think that their life is in disarray. And perhaps it is, but one of the best ways to get life back in, I don't know what the word is, whatever the opposite of disarray is, I guess array, um, is to just focus on the stuff you can control. And what she can control, the easiest way for me to have a conversation with her about that is to ask her, what are you pleased about the way you showed up, even though things weren't seeming to get better?
Yeah, one of the things I think that's really valuable about what you're saying and highlighting is, in some sense, um, change. We sometimes overestimate change and like what we have to do in order to get better. And you're really highlighting, if I just notice small differences in my regular routine, if I show up at my very best when I do my regular routine, that's actually where power kind of builds and grows, is these like, I'm doing this, what I normally do, in a way that's different than the way that I normally do it. It means something's different. And another time in this session where that comes to play really importantly is you spend quite a bit of time talking about prayer. And Jay talks about how there's somebody at her church who prays with passion. And she's like,
Mm.
it sounds weird, but I'm jealous of the way she prays, because everything she prays for, it's like inevitable that has to happen because she prayed so diligently about it. And you spend a whole bunch of time talking about like, if you prayed like that, what would be different? Can you just walk me through again? I think it's kind of a similar thing, but it's like, can you walk me through why what she normally does, prayer, but if she does it differently, why that would make a big difference?
Man, so one of my favorite things when people say something in session, like, I've observed something in someone else. And there's almost this othering that happens, right? Like, I admire the way she prays, and dang it, I don't pray like that. Well, of course you can. She's just not putting herself in those shoes. So if I ask a question like, and if you did pray like that, what would you notice? It forces the recipient of the question, in this case, Jay, to envision herself doing the things she admires. And in her head, she's already making the connection between passionate prayer and the inevitability of change.
Mm.
She's already made that connection. It actually doesn't matter whether I believe in the power of prayer or not. She does. So if I can put her in a position through my question of she's envisioning herself doing passionate prayer, then she's also envisioning herself having whatever she's praying for become her reality.
Mhm.
So it's a cool thing when clients say stuff like, I really admire that Adam, um, I really admire that Adam, trying to think of something that you do every day. I really admire that Adam eats a salad for lunch. Well, you don't have to just admire it. You can actually replicate it. Like you can actually take that on. There's this idea that like, well, Adam's able to do that because he's Adam.
Mm.
And the truth is, no, Adam's a human. So if Adam has made the choice to eat a salad every day, then I can too. And we all do that. Like I remember having uh, dinner a few years ago with a friend of mine in Hollywood who's a well-known actress and successful. And we went to go have dinner, and they asked her what she wanted for her meal, and she ordered her meal. And then they asked her what she wanted for her drink. She said, "What do you guys have?" And they list all these drinks. We have Coke, Diet Coke, Sprite, root beer, Dr. Pepper, blah, blah, blah. And then she said, "I don't drink soda." And I thought, that's weird. Like, I admire that about you, but soda's wonderful. Like, and I remember thinking, like, I could never do that. I vividly remember thinking to myself, I admire it, but could never do it. Well, now you fast forward a little bit, I don't drink soda now. And I've had to, you have to take a step to make the envisioned admirable thing your new reality. And in this case, she's admiring the passionate prayer of someone she has observed. Well, why can't she do it? Why can't she do it? And the easiest way, I think as therapists, we think the easiest way to get someone, I'm using the word get someone, to create change is to make a suggestion to them to adopt the change. But that's actually not the easiest way. If that were the case, then therapy would be just as simple as telling people what to do.
Mm.
So I think a lot of therapists would hear the client say that, would hear Jay say that, and say, "Oh, you should go home and pray passionately." But the best way to get someone to change is to get them to envision themselves doing the change. And the best way to do that is to ask them a question. In essence, so what would happen if you prayed like that? And then boom. Now they're already in the headspace of doing it. So I love when clients say that. And to me, it's a very direct avenue to change.
Yeah, one of I guess that leads me to one of the other questions that I was going to ask, which is for her, like this relationship or this like interaction with God becomes something really powerful. And you kind of get to a place of like maybe this change that you're looking for isn't a physical change. It's not a workout change. But it's more of a spiritual change.
Hmm.
But you kind of alluded to this before. Some people that might resonate with quite a bit, and other people might say, like, religion, God, spirituality, that doesn't really matter to me. That's not my thing. How do you know? How do you know what your change oriented thing is? You talked a lot about like all you have to do is envision what you admire somebody else doing. But how do I know what to envision?
Oh, I think that's easy. Because we all look at things and people, behaviors and actions with admiration. And we all know. So I think it's just giving yourself permission to admit it to yourself, really. But I think we all know. I don't think that that's ever really foggy.
So let's say I do like self analysis enough. I look at other people. I say, what do I admire about other people? I find my thing. How do I know how to make it motivational enough? How do I know how to make it my own thing so that now I'm inspired to do so? I'm inspired to make the change that I need to make.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know because the answer to that is going to be different for everybody. Um, find your why. Like, why do you want to do that? Because your why will usually lead to action change. I talked about my journey with drinking soda. My why became I wanted to improve my health. I had a difficult visit with my doctor, and it's like, all right, I want to improve my health. The day I saw my friend say I don't drink soda, I knew that she was making the healthy choice. I'm not stupid. I was aware that she is making a better choice with what she puts in her body than I am making with what I put into mine. I'm not dumb. I didn't become motivated to change until a doctor told me you are experiencing negative health consequences because of the choices you're making. And my why became I want to have a higher quality of life. I'm on the second half of my life. I probably am 47 years old. It's very likely I don't have 47 years in front of me. I want to enjoy those 47 years. And now all of a sudden, I could do the action that I couldn't imagine doing just a couple of years prior. So I think the easiest way to turn in something you admire in someone else or something you admire that you observed is to find the why connected to why you would do it. And I think the reason why therapy is so important is every person has a different why.
Mm.
Um, every human being has a different why. Every culture has it. Like you and I, Adam, we talk often about the different cultures in which we come from, and my why is very often different from your why. My why is very often not the same as your why. And some of those are our personalities and some of those are our cultures. But I think the biggest mistake we make as not just clinicians, but also people is I think I can give you my why and you should take an action. And then if you don't take an action, I then get to label you as stubborn, resistant, or whatever. But the simple truth is, once you are in touch with your own purpose and your own why, then lots of changes become quite possible.
Mm. So you highlighted in your answer, therapy can be really helpful to help people find their why. And I'm gonna ask you a question that came from, again, I'm gonna kind of go back to the beginning of the session when Jay was like, I don't know, not much is better, not much is improving, and you ask her, so what are your best hopes from this session? And she said, I don't know, because I don't. She said our conversations have been positive, but I'm not sure it's enough. And she kind of alludes to like therapy, this kind of therapy, whatever it is, might not be enough to help me get to where I want to be. And I and the a lot of the session then kind of builds on like what's enough and those kinds of things. But if how would people know if you're saying like I could go to therapy, I could figure out my why, how do I know if therapy is enough?
Mm. I don't think you could know until you engage in it and see. Um, Man, Adam, that's a really good question. I think you have to engage in therapy and you have to just see.
How do there's so many different kinds of therapy out there. So if I don't know much about therapy and I'm looking for a therapy that I think, okay, this one could help me, like this one could be enough, how do I know, like, of all the choices out there, what should I pick and how do I evaluate, oh, this one is going to be enough for me?
Because I don't think it's the therapy, I think it's the therapist. So I think you should ask yourself, do I think this person can help me? And I think you should ask yourself, do I think I can stay engaged with this person long enough to experience the help? But I actually don't think it's the therapy. I think it's the therapist. I think it's the person.
I think
Which,
you're right.
by the
And
way, my biggest caution for anybody out there considering therapy, my biggest caution is you are not like the therapy is irrelevant, really. It's the therapist that you're going to work with.
mm, I think you're right. One of the things that I would say about that is when you look at a lot of the research on what makes therapy effective, in some sense, I would change that to what makes therapy good enough. Most of the things that indicate that therapy is going to be useful is, does it increase my hope? And so many different therapies, like, will in an initial stage of therapy, they will detract from your hope, because they'll say things like, what brought you here, and how bad is it, and how long has this been going on, and da 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 da. And all of those things will detract from my hope. And so I think immediately, if I can find a clinician who's going to say, who's going to ask me questions, who's going to help me to like build hope, then I think that's an indication of, this is going to be therapy that's good enough. I think the other thing that you just highlighted too is, so much of this is about, can I relate to my therapist? Do I appreciate them? Do I feel like they're valuable? Do I feel like they understand me? And I think so many people get into therapy and they're afraid to move to the next therapist, even though they feel like, this person's not really that helpful to me, or I don't connect with this person. And I think one of the things that people should be really empowered to do is to take change into their own hands and say, this person isn't going to help me get the change that I want. I'm going to go find somebody who will help me get the change that I want.
I think that's absolutely true. I think you, Adam, you are such a good clinician. But it starts with like being a clinician that's working from the right place.
Hmm.
Now, it just so happens you do what we refer to as solution focused brief therapy. I know another person who I think is also a very good clinician, who I think is a wonderful person, who I also think is working from the right place. His name is Dr. Peter Bradley, and he does strategic family therapy. Um, and I have all the confidence in the world that he could create change. I think the big mistake we make is like we have options, like Adam Thrower on one hand and Peter Bradley on the other. And we ask ourselves, would solution focused help me or would strategic help me? But it's actually not about that. It's actually about the person. Does this person engender the hope that would lead to me experiencing change? Now, if the answer to that is no, then find someone else who will.
Mm-hmm.
I think as human beings, we have a tendency to stay in relationships longer than we should. And I mean that in almost all kinds of relationships, friend relationships, romantic relationships, business relationships, clinical relationships. Like we stay in these relationships because we think like I got to give it more time. And like if you don't feel the hope that things will change, then you should go do something different. Something is going to happen in the subsequent weeks that Jay experiences a significant boost in hope. I'm not going to tell you guys what it is. We'll talk about it on this podcast here, but like there is a noticeable shift in Jay's experience of hope. One of the hardest things about doing solution focused brief therapy is we are not doing what the client anticipated us doing when they booked the session. Normally, most people don't know most people don't know solution focused versus strategic family therapy, but they do know like a stereotypical session looks like laying on a couch, being asked about my problems, asked about my dreams. Like they do know what they've seen on television as a traditional. So when we do what we do, there's almost a drop in hope because you're doing something odd.
Mm.
And I think as clinicians, we've we've got to know that. Like when I train therapists, I often say, you have to be better than the expectation because that makes hope go up. But because we're doing therapy in a non-stereotypical, I don't want to say traditional, but we are violating the stereotypes that they expected when they came to therapy. Sometimes people are like, wait, what is this person doing? Now I have less hope because I thought it was going to be this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm totally okay with Jay being like, I don't know if this is going to help me because I know she's analyzing. This isn't kind of what I expected it to be. I thought I was going to sit here and I was going to tell you all about my problems and you're going to give me some suggestions, but that's just not the best way for me to do therapy. I don't like in my bones. I don't believe the best way to create change is for me to listen to your problems and then me give you a suggestion. Like I just in the core of me, I don't believe that's the best way to create change.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's really valuable. I think I have one question left for you, and Jay talks about previous therapy that she went to when she was in college to kind of help her manage abuse and those kinds of things. And you asked her a couple of questions about like change moments. One of the questions that you asked her is like, how did you know that it was time to break up? And she said, I did something in a relationship that I knew wasn't me, and I didn't want to be that person. And so then you said, like, what did you do about it? And she said, I went to therapy. And then you kind of walked through like what was helpful about therapy and those kinds of things. And you asked, how did you know you were moving in the right direction? And she said, I was making better choices. And then ultimately you got to she said there was this mind shift that happened. I didn't want to get angry anymore. I wasn't getting angry anymore. And there was this mind shift that happened. And you then said, I'm if your mind shifted again, how would you notice that? And she had alluded to, I would be responsible, and you said, I would be responsible for my actions. I'm going to take control of this situation. If you had that mind shift again. And I think oftentimes when people experience change, it is kind of this like mind shift moment. I see myself differently. I experience myself differently. My question is, how can people be better aware of when these mind shifts are happening, or what can they do to help facilitate these mind shifts to happen?
Oh my gosh. Um, I think people should increase their awareness of their accomplishments and pay less attention to their deficits. So, how do I explain that? So we started this by kind of joking about your title. If like a lot of times, and I've talked to Adam about his doctorate degree, and Adam's like, well, I came from an educated family. Like my sibling is a dentist, and another sibling is a this, another sibling is a that. Like, and he doesn't realize it, and we all do that, but it's like we make excuses for our success, and we take blame for our failures. So like Adam, and I'm gonna use I know this is a harsh way to phrase it, Adam, so I apologize, but like when Adam says, well, because I've overtly asked Adam, like, how did you get a doctorate degree? And his response is, oh, I come from an educated family, I come from an educated culture, and everybody in my family has an advanced degree of some sort. So I kind of knew that's just what I would go. But that's him making an excuse for his success. That's him making an excuse for the accomplishment. These to really be aware of these kind of mind shift moments, most people have to own their success. Like, because the answer to the question, like, how did you get a doctorate degree, is I worked really hard and I sacrificed over a long period of time. I chose the right partner because in order to get that degree, my partner had to agree to move from where we were living at the time, which was Oregon, to Lubbock, Texas, because the program where I got my doctorate degree was in uh, Texas Tech. So, like, for Adam to get this doctorate degree, he had to have the right kind of partner and the right kind of relationship, which means I had to be behaving in a certain way as a boyfriend, fiance, husband, wherever he was in those stages. I also know, because I know Adam really well, his first child arrived around that time when these moves were happening. So it's like, I got to be the right kind of dad. Like, there's so much that went into this doctorate degree, far more than just I came from an educated family. I also had to be smart enough. I had to work hard enough. I had to be disciplined enough. I had to be, I had to let my partner know that, look, I'm going to be in the study room or at the library all night, but I'll bring you your favorite dinner home when I leave, whatever it is. Like, a lot of personal attributes went into Adam accomplishing that thing. And I think most of us, we just give away, we just make excuses for our success. And if you want to really, really like take advantage of those moments, then you have to focus and you have to increase your awareness of the attributes you possess that lead to you accomplishing anything. And you can pick any accomplishment in your life. I happened to like I happen to use Adam's doctorate degree as an example because we started a conversation talking about it. But you literally, like, Adam, how did you buy your first home? You know what I mean? Like, Adam, how did you buy your first car? Or Adam, how did you run your first marathon? To my knowledge, Adam's never run a marathon, but well, my point, like, any accomplishment in your life, just choose that, and then start asking yourself, what attributes do I have that helped that become my reality?
Very good. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to wrap up. I think oftentimes, like you said, we are willing to give away credit for our successes and we're willing to take blame for our failures. And I think in some sense, these mind shifts are about reversing that. It's
Yes.
about taking credit for our successes and refusing to take blame for the failures, or learning from the failures so that you can turn them into successes.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's okay. Like, I know why you do what you do, Adam. Like, if I said, "Hey, how did you get that doctorate degree?" I've never heard you in my life of knowing you say something like, "Because I'm brilliant." Like, you're just not that kind of person. So other people probably aren't that kind of person either. So I'm not saying you just got to walk around all day saying how great and brilliant you are, but in a quiet moment when it's just you, own it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, own. I I made the athletic team because I'm a great athlete, or I lost 20 pounds because I could focus, or, you know, own it. Do you have to walk around saying, I'm really amazing, I lost 20 pounds? Absolutely not. But, and if someone asks you, how did you lose 20 pounds? By all means, be gracious and humble. That's fine. But in quiet moments of yourself, just own it. Just be aware that the good things in my life happen because I have attributes and traits that allowed those good things to become a reality.
yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you very much.
No problem.
Another really great session. We're gonna keep going. We'll come back again. We'll do the next session. But in the meantime, I'm gonna just invite people who are watching, listening, to do exactly that. To take a quiet moment and to say, how did I accomplish things that were really difficult for me? Take some ownership of that. I think it'll make a huge difference in our mindset and how we approach our next challenges going forward.
Couldn't agree more.